Today's question comes from Richard Saunders. So, hi, Richard, how are you? And the question is, if a client uses the term "that's gay" to describe something that's less than worthy, do you think that the therapist should speak about the comment with the client? Would it make any difference if the therapist was actually gay? Question mark. Oh, well, I think use of language is an interesting one, and I'm going to address the second question first. Would it make any difference if the therapist was gay? Well, it would depend, I guess, on the therapist. You know, I think that there may be some therapists who were gay who could be offended at that, and certainly in terms of the world we live in now, if you use that, certainly in the government departments, I dare say that someone may very well take you to one side and say, really, you know, you can't be saying that nowadays because you might offend somebody, and you know, you shouldn't be offending people. But do we challenge clients who say these things? It's an interesting one, isn't it? And do you know what my view is? My view is that sometimes when clients do that, they can either be testing you, or it might be a link to what's actually going on for them. So I don't think it's a therapist's job to be an agent of social control and police the clients. I think it's a therapist's job is to try and find out the meanings. And my view is that I would ask them and say, when you say that's gay, what does it mean? And you know, when I was a child therapist, they used that all the time. It was just a patois, you know, and there's no intent behind it. There's no homophobic intent. It was just a piece of language. And I understand that for some it's unacceptable, but sometimes I think reading the intent is just as important as understanding what's being said.
I like that. And we always come back to the same places. And the one that I find myself at right now is that self-concept. It's how we view, or how we, what weight or credence we give to a certain word that somebody may use. My daughter is 14. And she is at school, and they've got their own language in the same way as when I was at school and I was in my teens. We had our own language, and it was our kind of a way of kind of having a chat within the school that the teachers didn't really understand because they weren't hip and they didn't know what we were really talking about. And that language kind of goes out of fashion and back into fashion as it goes. And my understanding of, that is so gay, does not necessarily relate to being gay. It is just a saying in the same way as that is sick does not mean that that person is ill. It just means it's cool. I look back in time to where somebody might go, that's queer. That's a really queer thing. And you might hear from an elderly gentleman might say, oh, that is queer. But when I was at school, queer was a derogatory word that was used to relate to somebody who was gay. And so the words change, and it's about, I like what you said, Rory, is check with the person what that means to them. Yeah, because if a person says, oh man, I've just got this new cat and it's so sick, we as a counsellor may go, oh, that's such a shame. And they're going, no, it's a sick cat. Wow, sick, really good. It's confusing. We need like a translator in the room.
It is tricky. And I think we shouldn't underestimate that words have tremendous power. And, it's easy to say, well, it's just a word. But, if you're on the receiving end of abuse and derogatory comments, it's just another drip of the weight that you have to carry. So, in no way do I think that I personally wouldn't use that word in my general language. I think it's about intent. I also think it's about really exploring where the client's coming from. And in my experience, I've worked with clients through the years who've had quite interesting vocabularies for people of colour, for women, for people who are gay. But actually, by exploring that, you can come to where they are in terms of their own process of development and their own acceptance of themselves. So I think that, yes, sometimes, words can be offensive to a therapist, but I would be thinking about, let's explore that. Let's see what the meaning is. Let's see if we can find that meaning. And I think that's really, really important. So I hope that's answered that question, Richard.
Yeah, it certainly jogged it for me. And if anything, it's created more debate in my mind, because I think you're right, Rory. It's about examining what the intent in it is and what the meaning behind those words are, because they may have a different meaning leaving the mouth of the person who's there saying it to what is entering our ears, and that blockage as it could, I guess, hamper our way of understanding what the client is meaning. So really exploring, when you say that, what is it that you actually mean? Use some different words so that I can understand that. I don't think there's any shame in that, in not fully understanding, in clarifying with them and getting what they actually mean out of them. And I think that's definitely something to think about. And no doubt there will be more words as fashion changes that will come up that we may not fully understand the meaning of, and words that mean what sound like they mean one thing but actually mean something else, depending on what your frame of reference is on that. I mean, there's an advert out at the moment, don't want to plug them, but the saying and the catchline is that, "Oh, you're so money supermarket," and that infers something. They've created that this wording infers something if you watch those adverts, and people are starting to pick up on that, and they're starting to go out and have some dinner and say, "Wow, that dinner was really money supermarket." It's becoming absorbed into vocabulary. It's really interesting, I think.
It is. And, you know, as I said again, just to reiterate, we shouldn't underestimate the power of words. Words could be cutting, hurtful. They could add to the burden that someone's already carrying if they're you know, the subjects are being abused, or who they are is being subject of historic abuse. And a good example, I don't know if people watch the program, Have I Got News for You? But it's a satirical news program. And Joe Brand, who's a former mental health worker, superwoman,
Oh yes,
excellent comedian, and they were talking about the recent scandals of people in power abusing power, certainly with women. And she said, you know, she mentioned something, and the male panelist said, "That's kind of trivial, isn't it?" And what she said was really, really accurate. She said, "It might sound trivial to you, but if you're a woman and you just have to deal with this on a daily basis, it grinds you down."
yeah.
And ergo, the word "gay" could be, you know, is almost certainly in that same lexicon of language. But in terms of our clients, let's try and explore meanings.